Well, all of Utah County's on a mask mandate, though. But orange, so yeah, you're right. So that's good. Yeah.
Thank you.
And just so and these guys know as well, I'm going to hand a mic to them.
Okay.
You either have to repeat their question or they try to talk to my corner for Zoomers to hear them.
Oh, okay.
So.
Do I just put this in my pocket or?
Yeah.
Hello?
Yeah.
It's not too bad.
Scoot up just a titch if you can. Kind of closer better. Yeah.
Right there?
Yeah. Hey, you guys, welcome to Ignite. If we're social distance and you can take off masks while you're in Ignite, just as long as we're spread apart. But we want to introduce Dallin Lyman. He's an awesome agent here. Dallin, we are going to have you give your kind of bio, why KW, why real estate.
Okay.
We just want to have the agents kind of connect with each other and see that this doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah.
So how you get into it and everything. So I'll let Dallin tell you that, but he's teaching today make and receive offers and has printed out some awesome information. He's going to actually have you guys do some, not role play, but what would you call it? Just kind of more interactive.
Yeah. Just, I'm going to have everyone write an offer.
Okay, cool.
Well, everyone present at least.
Cool. All right. So we've got a Zoomer on right now. So the camera's right here. So if you guys have any questions, like you've done this before, just talk in the mic and we'll turn the time over to Dallin. So.
Thank you. Do you anticipate more people to be here? Or do you think this is going to be at?
They might trickle in. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's smart to start at 9:30 because people used to not show up till 9:30 when it started at 9. So awesome. Thank you. Well, it's feels weird wearing a microphone with two people in here, but I'll try and remember those who are on the other side of the camera. I like to just start by, I guess, having everyone introduce themselves. What's your name? How long have you been in the business? Why are you in the business? Do you want to start? Sure, yeah. I guess so they can hear.
Yeah, I'm Mason Jones. I've been licensed only for about a month and a half.
Okay.
So, and the reason I got in the business because I used to build new construction with Flagship.
Oh,
I
nice.
used to work for them, so I just kind of decided to take a different route in what I was doing and try and take things in a different place that I more wanted to be at. You know,
Awesome.
I worked with a lot of real estate agents, and they were all super awesome people. So,
Awesome. What were you doing with Flagship?
final walkthrough inspections.
Oh, okay.
So,
Nice. The blue taping?
Yep.
Nice.
A lot of fun blue tape.
That's the funnest part of building. Probably not for the builder, though. Have to call 15 different trades to close in 3 days. That's funny. And why are you in real estate? Did you mention that?
Just because I wanted a change of what I was doing, and I kind of in the real estate business a little bit, like, because I was building the houses. Now I want to work on selling and marketing them, you know, make a little bit more money than what I was doing.
Yeah,
So,
get in on the dough, huh?
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Cool. And your name again?
Mason Jones.
Mason Jones. All right. Good to meet you.
I'm Mason Smythe.
Oh, you're Mason too?
Yeah.
Two Masons. That's
Yeah.
great.
I did property management before this.
Okay.
For about 3.5 years. And previously I worked with Carl Spencer.
Oh, cool.
So I was getting my license there with the property management company. But I wanted to sell real estate anyway. But then the property management thing didn't work out. The company let me go, and now I'm here.
Awesome.
So Carl brought me on to Keller Williams.
It's not awesome to let you go, but it's awesome that you're here.
It's better not to be with the company I was with, but
Who are you with?
they're called Sentinel,
Oh, okay.
smaller company out of American Fork.
I was going to guess Alliance, just, you know.
Well, there's a
Because
few
of the
property
undertone.
management companies that it's probably better not to be with.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, it's good to meet you. Yeah.
My name is Alex Latu. Did you just want to say?
Just your name, how long you've been in the business, and why you're in the business.
Literally got my license number last Friday.
Sweet.
So brand new. But I've wanted to be in it for a few years now, and working from home with COVID finally gave me the push to finally do something that I wanted to do more than what I was already doing. I've been in sales for the last 3 years.
Cool.
And I've loved it, which is part of why I haven't made the switch, but our company has switched to permanently working from home, which is what gave me the push to finally do this. So
That's awesome.
that's it.
That's really awesome. Have you guys learned yet that real estate isn't easy? Not quite yet. It's not, but what you'll soon learn if you stick with it and if you commit to the process of learning it, you're going to learn how worth it is. Real estate. So a little bit about my background. I've been in around sales since I was like 15, just like I was selling for phone companies when I was younger. And then I went on a mission for 2 years. I went and served a mission in Micronesia. Came home and I got roped into the whole Vivint Bro brigade. And yeah, oh yeah. I didn't quite reach the level of brohood to last though. I ended up leaving after 3 years just because it didn't feel like it was for me long term, but it taught me a lot. And so I remember my last summer doing door-to-door sales, I just got to the point where I was tired of traveling. I was tired of like people treating me like the scum of the earth, and I decided that it was time for a change. And so I went and got my license. During the second half of the summer.
Why real estate?
Well, originally I had always been interested in real estate, and I had also wanted to find a job that would allow me to work and stay local. I didn't want to have to, my wife was about to have our first kid. I didn't want to have to be hauling our kids and my wife, across the country twice a year, just to provide. And yeah, it was a good living, but I wanted something that would allow me to stay home, provide some kind of stability, but also maintain that flexibility in my life. And so that's kind of why real estate appealed to me. But I remember I believe it was on my birthday. I remember literally just like being so worn out and so exhausted and so tired. I was working in Texas in a place where I would literally knock on a door and they would tell me that I was the third Vivint guy that they talked to that morning. At noon, they're telling me they've already talked to 3 Vivint guys. It was super saturated. Vivint had a really strong presence there. Several pest control companies, several alarm companies, solar companies, like everyone was just chomping at the bit, just feeding on Texans. You know what I mean? It was just all these leeches just, gouging people for their money. And I was exhausted. So I was sitting in my car, avoiding going out to knock doors. I just walked into 7-Eleven to grab a Slurpee and walked out, and I was just sitting in my car like, I've got 2 more months of this. I can't do this. And I got on Facebook and saw that one of my friends who had left Vivint a couple years before, who had come here and gotten into real estate, he said that he was expanding and looking to hire on agents for his real estate team. And I looked at him, I'm like, hey, he's been super successful. He once did what I'm doing. He's now doing what I want to do. I need to talk to him. So I called him up, told him he actually transferred to the South Valley office. But I called him up, I'm like, dude, I really am so fed up with alarms. Like, get me out of here. And he's like, hey, start school, get your license, and hit me up. So started taking classes the next day. And, I'd go out and work, 7-8 hour days and then come home, stay up till 2 a.m. doing classes and repeat, right? And I got back from the summer. I was home 2-3 weeks, hustled through the rest of classes, took my test, got my license. And the day I got my license, I get a call from him. He said, Dallin, your license just came in. I want you to get out and knock doors. yeah, for the next 2 hours, I want you to get out. I want you to pound doors. And I'm like, no. First off, I just got back from the summer. Second off, I don't even know what the pitch would be. I've never bought a home, never sold a home. I know nothing about the real estate industry at all, besides the fact that it's possible to buy and sell a home. And, I need a little bit more training than that. So I went and shadowed him the next day, followed him around while he knocked doors, because that was his thing. He built his business knocking doors. And then I went out and started knocking doors. And that's really how I built my business. And I know I'm not teaching the lead gen class, even though that is my favorite class. And I did dibs it first, but a different agent wanted to teach it, so I gave it to him. But one thing I'll say in regards to being a new agent and lead generation is your friends and family are incredibly important, okay? They're important because eventually there's a significant chance that they will be the base, the foundation, and the support of your business. But I'll also counsel you, I'll also advise you to treat them like they are important, because in my opinion, and a lot of agents would disagree, so take it as a grain of salt, but in my opinion, too many agents get into the real estate industry and just pound on and beat up their friends and family before they've even proven themselves as agents. And then by the time that they're like they've finally built up their business, their friends and family are already like, oh, they still have those vibes. So it's important to nurture, it's important to stay in contact, but you've got to know that some of your friends and family, they're just going to support you because they love you and they think you're cute and they want you to succeed, right? Your mom's probably going to be really good at that, but your mom isn't going to buy and sell a house every year, right? And so you've got to accept within yourself that there may be some of them who will go and use different agents initially. But if you can start now on focusing and figuring out how can I prove to them that I'm a solid agent, that I'm going to take care of them, that I'm not just this new agent with a license, like, the 10,000 other agents in Utah, but I'm an agent that's here to stay, that's committed, and that does solid quality work. When I first started, the first thing I did is I sent out a letter to all of my friends and family announcing that I made a professional change, announcing that I was in real estate, and asking them for their support, okay? I didn't really make any other contacts besides that. I got that in the hands of every person I possibly could, which, by the way, Keller Williams pays for, up to 200 letters. I got that in the mailbox of every person I could think of. And then I set out to prove to them that I'm trustworthy and that they should call me, that they need me, okay? I wasn't just calling them and saying, hey, I heard that you're thinking about selling and just wanted to remind you I'm your nephew, Instead, it was more, I went out, busted my butt. I was knocking doors, running open houses, doing everything I could to get in front of as many people as I could, to convert as many leads as I could, to close as much business as I could. And as soon as I started having a couple of things rolling in, I started having family and friends calling me. My boss my Vivint boss, who told me when I left that, he sees people do this all the time. I'm going to go out, fall on my face, and I'll be back next summer. That same boss started calling me saying, hey, I'm thinking about getting my real estate license. He was asking me for advice. I coached him through his first 3 or 4 deals. A multimillionaire boss that I had at Vivint was now calling me for advice because I've gone out and just proven to them that I'm trustworthy, that I'm legit, and that I'm not just another aunt, uncle, or cousin that has a real estate license and does 2 deals a year, right? And if you go out with that mindset, the mindset of, I'm going to do everything I can to be in front of my SOI, be friends, but I'm not going to give them that awkward, weird obligation. I'm just going to prove to them that they want to use me, right? It will really have a great impact on your business throughout time, right? Anyway, so I won't get into too much more detail on the dynamics of like what I did for lead generation to get where I ended up. But my first year, I closed 17 transactions. technically 18, but one of them was a referral, so I didn't count it. And a handful. I know several of my first 2 or 3 were from door knocking. And more importantly, most of the transactions that ended up happening, I went, and again, I go over all this in the lead gen class. I'm going to try and teach it next month. But I was able to link almost every transaction that I did to 2 things that I did that year: the letter and door knocking. Almost every single transaction, you know, because I got a couple of sign calls, right, on listings that I got because they were the family member who I sold a house for, who called me because they saw that I had sold 3 houses already in my first couple months, right? So it's like I could link this web of business all to those 2 activities. And really, like, for my first year and a half, there weren't many deals that I couldn't link to that. And I'm still seeing it. I started off the year this year. I had 5 closings in February this year, and 4 of them were doors I knocked 2 years ago. I'm not kidding. And so knocking doors can be a little bit of a long game, but here's why I love knocking doors. And here I am teaching lead gen. I love knocking doors because the person on the other side of the door, they don't know how long you've been in business. They don't know your weaknesses, your faults, all of the reasons that maybe they shouldn't use you. All that they know is who's standing in front of them, what they're saying, and how you're making them feel. And if you can make them feel good, and if you can mean it, if you can back it, you have such a high chance of being able to convert that lead, right? And you can come to me and contact me if you have more questions on what to say if they ask how many transactions you've closed and things like that. I kind of learned how to navigate that. But once you get 1 or 2 under your belt, it's like, yeah, I've only done 2 transactions, but I've been in the business 30 days. You know, I've been in the business 60 days, whatever it is. So anyways, I just wanted to tap into the lead gen, you know, kind of, it's part of my story, right? So I was rookie of the year my first year. Last year was my second year. I closed 24 transactions.
Oh, you started.
Yep. Yeah, so I started in 2018. Last year was my second year. I closed 24. This year, I'm pacing to break 24, but my goal was 36. I was doing great at the beginning of the year, and throughout the summer, I had a little too much fun, and now I'm pounding the pavement again. So have whatever fun you want, but just know it comes at a cost. So, yeah. So I had a lot of mentors within the office. And so frankly, if there's anyone here that isn't sold on KW yet, I'm going to tell you that I really honestly don't think I would be in the business still. And I certainly wouldn't have had the success I had if it wasn't for KW. The training that they can offer to new agents, like, it's unmatched. There's nothing like it out there. And so if you come to Ignite, you're literally hearing from, I mean, I'm the exception, but you're hearing from the best agents in our office, like top producers, big deals, right? I'm a producer, but anyways, I don't consider myself worthy of being in the same category as some of the agents that instruct. But if you can listen to their advice and take it seriously and what KW can teach, you can't fail. You can't fail. And if nothing else, almost every deal that I've done in the last 3 years, I can directly correlate again to the letter I sent out that KW paid for, that they pushed me to do, even though I didn't want to. Resisted it. I didn't want to send out a letter. So I actually got licensed. Next month will be my 3-year mark. So what's cool about this time of year is it's Christmas card season. Simple text to all of your SOIs. members, message on Facebook, hey, I'm sending out Christmas cards. What's your address? Put in a Christmas card, put your letter in there, mail it. That's what I did. But it's just a simple text. You can just text them and say, hey, what's your...
Can't you do that through command?
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of ways to do it. You can, if you wanted to, you could look up their address, but it's good to make that contact and reach out. And you can even call them. It'd be give you a good reason to call them and just say, hey, just wanted to let you know, crazy life update. I just decided to become a real estate agent. I just got my license, and I'm just sending out letters to, officially announce that to all my loved ones. Can I get your address? And they're going to give it to you. Right?
I just text everybody after I do the call.
Mm-hmm.
I usually forget to ask for the address. Or I just ask them during my call the same thing.
Yeah, either way, like a little underhanded text after you get off the call. Oh, by the way, what's your address? I forgot to ask. And yeah, so there's a lot of ways to do that, but I'll get in trouble if I talk too much more about a class that's already been taught. But if you have questions, I love helping new agents. One of the top 4 goals every year that I've had is to mentor that year's Rookie of the Year. And I don't know who's going to take it this year, but I really try and be involved in new agents' business and in new agents' lives, because it's still fresh on my mind. I remember what it felt like. And it's easy to quickly get discouraged. It is. But like if you apply what you learn here, you literally cannot fail. So that's my my little soapbox, my KW soapbox. I think for especially new agents, it's an invaluable place to be. So I think invaluable is the right word, but anyways, so this is my second favorite class to teach, and the reason why is because truthfully, this might sound arrogant, but almost like most agents out there do not know how to represent their clients. Frankly, they don't know how to submit a good offer, how to present their clients in the best possible light, how to compete in multiple offer situations, right? And so I've been taught over the years some really awesome tools and really awesome tricks to helping your clients when they're interested in the house get the offer accepted.
Sorry, so
you're good.
I'm a newbie, but the lending process, so you get pre-approved,
Mm-hmm.
you wait until the offer gets accepted and then you go to the lender and be like, hey, we just got it accepted, we need to start? Or how
That's
does that
a great
work?
question. And that's one of the first things I go over. So that's a perfect segue. If you learn nothing else from this class, take away the fact that you need a pre-approval letter. I ask for pre-approval letters before I even show homes. I literally sit my buyers down in a buyer consultation, and I tell them, listen, I would love to start showing you homes yesterday. However, if you don't have a pre-approval in hand, sellers won't look at you, they won't consider you, and you're wasting your time, wasting your heart, and I tell them, I'm like, the worst thing that I could possibly do as your agent is lead you to believe that you have a standing chance at getting an offer accepted without a pre-approval letter. And it happens all the time. So there's a couple reasons why a pre-approval before you even start looking at homes is essential. One, because it's too often that I have buyers or that I had buyers before I learned this the hard way that thought they were confident, with a $400,000 home mortgage, right? And we're out looking at $400,000 homes. We find a home that they like, go to get pre-approved with a lender, and they find out that they're only pre-approved for $250,000, right? How do you come back from that? If you've been looking at $400,000 homes, how do you come back to 250, and you know what I mean? It's really hard. And so the first reason why pre-approvals are so important is because you don't want to give them a false hope in what they can qualify for, what they're approved for. You want to know what they can qualify for. You want them to know what they're approved for before you start looking at homes, so that you are you're only showing them homes that they're qualified for. Because I promise you, if they have that $400,000 home stuck in their head, it's going to be really hard for them to come around to the, back down to earth at 250. I've lost buyers to that reality hitting them. Like, they probably would have been fine if we were looking at $250,000 homes from the get-go. But now that we're looking at $400,000 homes and they find out that they're only approved for 250, they're like, oh, never mind. Like, if I can't qualify for that, then I don't want to buy right now.
And I had found a buyer. I kind of snagged them outside of a model home because they didn't schedule an appointment.
Nice.
But they had been quote unquote pre-approved before by a different lender, and that lender never responded. But turns out that lender said they'd pre-approve for 300 to 350 if her fiance fixed his credit. And so as soon as I signed a buyer broker before, just because I'm a new agent, I want someone under my belt.
Yeah.
But they're building their credit now, and we're with First Colony. But they started sending me listings like, hey, we want to go look at this. We want to go look at this. So I had to sit down with them and be like, hey, we can't go look at anything because, you're going to tear your heart out by falling in love with these homes and not being able to make an offer on that yet. Like, we have to be ready.
Yeah, and that's the right stance to take. You will be tempted time and time again as an agent to just show the home. It's not a big deal. They want to see it, and you want to be on their good side. You don't want to ruffle feathers. But if you go and show a home without a buyer broker agreement and a pre-approval, you're setting yourself up for a lot of heartache. And I've learned that the hard way. I've had so it depends. It depends on how cool they are, how open they are. Sometimes, like a while back, I was called by a friend, and I lucked out that the builder wasn't strict on this. Got called by a friend, and he's like, hey, I heard that you built your home with Fieldstone. I said, yeah, I love them. He's like, cool. I just wanted to know what your experience was. I just barely walked the model home, and I think I'm going to be building a Fieldstone home. I'm like, really? And what subdivision? They're like, Scenic Mountain and Eagle Mountain. So I called the agent over there. I'm like, hey, my buyers came by. My buyers came by 30 minutes ago. How did the appointment go? He's like, oh, I didn't know that you were representing them. Awesome. I'll make sure that you're on their name. I looked out, right? Because a lot of builders require you to be there from the get-go. Yeah, so you've just got to, trying to think. What was your question again? Rephrase it. I just lost my train of thought completely. Oh, yes. Okay. So in that case, I went back to them and said, okay, before I can represent you, the state will be under agency. So, I'm going to send over this form for you to sign, blah, blah, blah. But in 99% of cases, every chance that you can, when you have someone call you and say, hey, we're thinking about making a move, thinking about buying a home, it's fantastic. This market is super competitive and super crazy. If you're going to be looking for a home, I would love to help you. And before we start looking, it would be really great if we could get together for 30 to 45 minutes so I can go over the home buying process and how to win in this crazy market, right? And then in that buyer consultation, you present the buyer broker and say, just so you know, I'm not technically legally allowed to be showing you homes until this is signed. So as soon as you sign this, and you have a pre-approval, we'll go start looking at homes. And then your bases are covered. Rookie mistake that I'll share with you. This still hurts, by the way. That first day that I was out knocking doors, my third day licensed, I ran into a guy who told me, oh my gosh, it's crazy you're knocking on my door because I'm about to buy a home. I'm wanting to buy a home up in the Canyon Hills area in Lehigh, and I don't have an agent. I'm like, amazing, And so I started asking him more details about his home, blah, blah, blah. I started showing him homes because I was scared to bring him in, scared to do a buyer broker. I started showing him homes immediately, started investing droves of time because he was going to buy in the 500 range. I'm like, that would be a sweet first buyer, right? Close a $500,000 transaction. And I showed him homes. I showed him homes. And I showed him homes. And I showed him homes. And I showed him homes. For 2.5 years, I showed this guy homes. And he kept, without a buyer broker, because once you've shown 2 or 3 homes, you can't go back and say, technically, I need to sign before I can start showing you homes, right? And if they're not writing offers, you definitely can't interject and say, okay, I have to have this signed before I can submit an offer for you, right? If they're not writing offers and I didn't get it from the get-go, I'm stuck. I could have done this awkward, sudden meeting and tried to pressure him to sign it, which I contemplated doing several times. But instead, I erred on the side of, no, I'm going to just stick with him and continue being there at the drop of a hat to show him any home, anytime, coming back early from vacations, I remember one time he called me at like 12:30 p.m. while I was on vacation, 12:30 a.m. while I was on vacation, and talked to me till 2:30 in the morning. I sacrificed so much for this buyer, only to find out that he was going around town trying to cut me out of deals, saying, hey, almost signing contracts. I got wind that he went to this one builder that he was thinking about building with. I called them again and said, hey, this guy's my buyer, and he's been trying to cut me out of deals. I've been showing him homes for 2.5 years. I'd really appreciate if you make sure I get in on this deal. And she's like, yeah. Well, when we went back to actually sign the contract, after my buyer left, the agent said, yeah, he tried like 3 different times to sell you out. And he was willing to take an upgraded doorknob if we would give it for not bringing in an agent. And so luckily I caught wind and I stayed on top of him, right? Like I kept asking him, hey, you looking at any builders? What do you think? And where you at? I did, barely, by the skin of my teeth. Over the 2.5 years, he went from looking at $450,000, $500,000 homes to $1 million homes. So he ended up building a $1 million home that I got paid base price on, which was $670,000. So it was still good. But the moral of I don't know. Yeah, so the question that they asked was, why did he keep trying to cut me out, and how did he react when he found out I was part of the deal? So kept trying to cut me out because he is just super cheap. I mean, he's the type of guy who will call every dealer in the entire region and leverage them all against each other to get a car for $5,000 less, $5,000 off sticker. You know what I mean? Guys that just, he with the purpose of having a salesman make a commission off of them. I mean, he's just that type of guy, right? The weird thing is we actually became like pretty good friends. I mean, despite the constant knife in my back feeling that I have by him, like he's a super cool guy. I enjoyed talking to him. We hit it off every time that we're around each other, have common. I like the guy a lot. Yeah, he kept trying to cut me out. And so the builder was the one who broke it to him. Hey, we honor our agents. They're the ones who bring us so much business. We're not going to cut any agents out of the deal for nothing. And the good builders will do that. There's less and less good builders every day. Most builders would happily give out a doorknob to save 3% on the house. Say what? I don't know if I should call it bad builders. You can come talk to me. Not on a recorded class though. Some builders that have actually blatantly cut me out of deals, yes. Even though I had buyer brokers and I was involved in the transaction, I've still been cut out of deals. So just be careful. And also in that buyer broker consultation, make sure that they know. And I would even make occasional posts telling your friends and family, hey, just so you know, if you go walking into a model home with or without the intent to buy, if you end up building a home with them or buying a home with them, if your agent isn't with you from, you know, the moment that you walk in that door, you can't have one. You're at the mercy of the builder. You're unrepresented, and you're literally, you just threw yourself in a shark tank, you know. So make sure people know that. Make sure people know to at least give you a heads up so that you can call in ahead of time and let them know that you're representing them. You just can't make it. I even did that one time and still got cut out of the deal. My cousin was the one buying the home. He looked the guy in the eye 3 times and told him, I do not have an agent. And I don't know if he got a deal or what, but I ended up going after him and telling the builder, like, hey, I have a buyer broker. I let you know that they are my clients. You know, you need to pay me a commission or else we're going to have problems. And he paid a referral fee on it. So
With someone buying a new construction home, how does the commission work? Do the builders pay you the commission?
Yes. Yeah, the builders pay the commission. They usually only pay based on the base price of the home, though. So a lot of times a $450,000 home is like a $380,000, $390,000, $370,000 commission, which is okay. I mean, it's unfortunate because you know that they're making a lot of cream in those upgrades. It's not like skimming by on the upgrades. That's how they make their money. But it is what it is. Some builders have started cutting their BAC, by the way, to 2 and 2.5%. So I always, never with my clients there, but I'll always just ask the builder when things are starting to get serious, hey, how do you do commissions? What percentage on what price? And then you kind of know what to expect from the get-go. Do new constructions scare me? No, I don't love them because if someone starts building today, I'm not going to get for a year, 6 months to a year, depending on the builder. I just went under contract on 3 different builder transactions like this last week. And so they're kind of nice because, they happen when they happen, and it's just a bonus check that I don't forget about, but I stop like planning on, right? But I would much rather get paid in 30 to 45 days personally. So if building really is the right thing for them, I'll always tell them you need to build. But if I really don't feel like building's in their best interest, or if I feel like they can have every bit as much or more going resale, then I'm going to tell them that. And what a lot of people don't think about is you look at the building prices, you're like, oh my gosh, I can build a home for so much less than I can buy one. But you're not accounting for what it's going to cost to finish the yard. You're not accounting for what it's going to cost to put in a fence. You're not accounting for the upgrades. Being someone who's fallen for that twice personally, it costs way more money to build. Way more money to build. So it depends. Sometimes you get a sweet deal, sometimes, but right now builders are so backed up. Most builders are on a wait list. And so it does kind of, it can make things a little bit messy. But anyways, so we better get into the making and receiving offers portion now that we're an hour in. Let's see. So when you get to that point where your first buyer is like, hey, I want to make an offer on this home, you're likely going to feel a bit of like a cloud 9, like, sweet, I might be getting a paycheck in 45 days. And you also might be feeling a little bit of a, how the heck do I do this? What do I do? Like, I know I felt like a wave of panic rushed through me because I'm like, I've never filled out a contract. I don't know exactly how to do this. Fortunately, another thing good about KW is there are 5 staff and 300 agents that will drop what they're doing almost in the moment, many of them, to help you when you really need help. You won't get that anywhere else. And so people are always willing to help me, and I love that. So anyways, what I want to do here is I want to kind of cover like what constitutes a good offer, how to submit a good offer, how to stand out as an agent in a situation where there could be 23 offers on a home. Yes, I have been seeing 23 to 30 offers on homes lately. You've got to know what you can do to make your offer stand out, because what 95% of agents do is not enough to cut it. And that's why, you know, for a lot of times when I have multiple offers on my listings, it is such an easy decision which offer to take. And I'll tell you what makes the difference. So do you guys have the Ignite manuals? A couple of you? It helps to follow along. So the first thing to know about making and receiving offers is what an offer is and what the seller can do with the offer once it's received. What an offer is the buyer literally fills out the real estate purchase contract in full, assumes the sell basically, signs the contract saying, hey, these are the terms, let's go. And then the seller reviews the offer and determines if they're happy with the offer how it is, if they hate the offer, or if it's a good offer but they need to adjust a couple points, right? So the three options a seller has once they receive this offer is they can accept it, be like, oh my gosh, this is a perfect offer, this is everything that we wanted and more, we're just going to accept this offer. They can reject it, which I don't recommend rejecting offers unless it truly is so dreadful and so far from reality that there's no point in even countering it. You know, if they're looking for a 60-day close, it's contingent, and they offer $15,000 under this price in the first 3 days of listing, then leave it up to the seller. But most of my sellers don't counter those. Yeah, and I'll go over in detail what things to look for on both sides, because I'm going to tell you guys honestly, this is where your real value shines through as an agent, in my opinion. Come on, homie can sell a home, right? They can sell a home. Just due to time, yeah, sorry. I'm going to get in trouble. Anyways, homie can sell a home, but where you earn your value as an agent, where I feel like I earned my value or failed my clients, is in the negotiations, okay? It's all in, on the buyer side, really, it's all about getting them the home, doing whatever it takes to get the home that they're willing to do. On the seller side, making sure that you get a good offer, making sure that you secure and isolate that offer to the best of your ability so that your sellers take on as least risk as possible. Let's see. So there's three steps in regards to representing a buyer. There's three crucial steps that go into the offer stage. Number one is to prepare them to make the offer. A lot of this preparation comes before you even start showing them homes in that buyer consultation. Another reason why it's so important is you've got to just let them know in that buyer consultation, or at least before you show them the first home, you've got to tell them, look, this is a super competitive market. That's not something to be scared of, because I am a real estate professional and I'm really good at getting accepted in multiple offer scenarios. But what it does mean is we're not in the 2012 market anymore, where homes are sitting on the market for 3 to 6 months and where you can offer them basically whatever you want and they're probably going to be desperate enough to accept it. Now, homes rarely sell as low as they're listed. I tell them that. I tell them, if we're looking at a home and it's been on the market for less than 7 days, the chances of that selling for more than they are asking those chances are super, super high, no matter what it is, you know. And I've seen homes that I look, I'm like, that's not worth that. Get multiple offers and people paying over asking for it. And so you've got to set that up, and you've got to tell them in that buyer consultation, listen, I am a professional. I hope that you can trust me when it comes time to making an offer. I will analyze the situation and help you to know what I think will best help us get the offer accepted. And sorry.
When you're going over offers, do you sit down with them in person and read through them with them?
As a seller's agent? It depends on who they are. Get to that on the seller side in a few minutes, but it really depends on who they are. And they have a hard time, like, digesting the lingo and all the terms and all that. Then I'll sit down with them. I'll print them off. I'll highlight and circle and cross, and well, I won't cross, actually, that's illegal. But help them to see exactly what the offer entails. But if it's just like this young couple and they're like, yeah, whatever, just tell us what we're getting, tell us when it's closing, then I'll just go through bullet points on each offer. And a lot of times there can be, 6, 7 offers on the table, and I'll tell them, okay, there's 4 offers that are offering less than you're asking, 3 offers that are asking or offering more. Do you want to consider these? And a lot of times they're like, no, if we're going to get more, let's look at the best offers. And so you leave that to yours and your seller, or leave that to your seller's judgment. I try to at least mention the term when I'm making offers. But generally, I'm going to go over the terms, the amount of earnest money they're putting down, how much they're offering, whether it's contingent on selling a home, whether it's contingent on due diligence, financing, and appraisal, when the deadlines are, if there's closing costs, things like that, and help them to know like which offer is all around best rounded offer. But anyways, we'll get more to the seller side in a minute. Right now in this market, I'm not going to say the hardest thing about the business is representing buyers, but it is a very challenging obstacle right now to be able to get buyers' offers accepted. Okay. And so, let's see. So the first point on here on page 13, at least in my manual, is it? Yeah. So number 1 is the pre-approval letter. That is so essential. Make sure they have a letter. Make sure that the pre-approval letter, if there is a price on the letter, make sure that it is what you're offering. I don't personally like sending in an offer that's worth 10 to 20,000 more than what we're offering, because then the sellers are like, oh, if you can qualify for 480, then how about 470? You know what I mean? Instead of 460. And so I always ask the lender to give me an offer or a letter that either doesn't have a price in it or that has the price that we're offering on it. Comparative market analysis. I usually go based on whether or not my buyers are worried about whether they're paying more for the home. There's some homes that are just like, that they're priced well, or there's so many offers it doesn't even matter anymore what the home's worth. Do you want it or not? Right, is what I usually tell my clients. But if they're kind of leery, like, I don't know if I pay $50,000 more than it's worth, if that's what it is, then I'll do a market analysis to help them to know if the home is priced fairly or if they're way out of reality. Reviewing tax records. I never do that. They disclose on the MLS what the taxes are. Title's going to let you know during your due diligence if there's any weird liens or anything on the property. So I disregard that part. Making sure the property is still available. There's nothing worse than showing a home, the clients love it, continuing to show them 4 more homes, and then driving home that night to write an offer and finding out that it was under contract 3 hours before, right? So always call the agent. What I like to do after walking through each home is, on a scale of 1 to 10, what do you think of the home? 1 being, I hate this home and I hope I never even drive by it again. 10 being, I want this home so bad that I can't see straight, and if I don't get this offer accepted, I'm giving up on home ownership forever. I'm always extreme, just partially to be funny and partially just to really figure out where they're at. Okay. And usually when I put that extreme of a scale, people tell me they're between like a 7, a 6 to 8. And I usually tell them, if you're over a 7, we need to be writing an offer, like right now. And so if they're like, yeah, we really like this home, like let's write an offer, then I ask them again, okay, again, how much do you need in this home? Is this an offer that you're going to make with the mindset of, I'm trying to think, there's some feedback. I don't know if it's me or if it's one of the microphones. Might be me. But I always ask them, is this going to be, you know, like, is this just an offer you're going to make because like you're interested, but you'd be perfectly fine with finding something else if it doesn't get accepted? Or do you have to have this home? Because we're talking two totally different offers, you know, based on your interest level. And so anyways, so make sure the home's still available. Call the listing agent. And while you're talking to them, say, by the way, what's important to yourself looking for? Like, what are they hoping to get as an offer? And I'll usually say besides price, because everyone knows that price is the most important thing. They'll tell you sometimes, I've seen crazy situations where the agents are like, honestly, they don't really care what they get. They're not worried about getting 10, 20,000 over asking. What they really care about is, you know, they want to sell this home, close as fast as possible, and then they want to lease it back for a few weeks to give them time to get into their next home, you know. And sometimes been able to win out of multiple offers, you know, 10 plus offers with asking price, because we're willing to be flexible and give them 2 weeks to move out. And so if you don't call the listing agent first to find out what's important to the sellers, you could be throwing away your client's money or completely depriving them of the opportunity to get a home that they could have had so easy if you would have just called. And it is seldom. On each of my listings, I'll maybe have 1 or 2 agents, if it's crazy, that call me and say, what's important to your sellers? Most agents just draft up the offer whenever. They don't contact me. They just share it in DocuSign, send it to my email. Don't even text me to tell me they send an offer. And I happened to find the offer just because I was skimming through my emails, you know, before I went and reviewed with the seller. And I'm like, oh, this offer came in yesterday and I didn't even know about it. Don't be that agent, because no matter how good that offer is, if the agent didn't call me, like how can I even have faith in that agent being competent to carry the deal through? It's super important. Another big benefit as a buyer's agent is once you know what's important to the seller, you go back to your buyers and say, hey, this is what's important to the seller. Where to work with them, right? Where are you guys willing to budge to, you know, offer? And then we write an offer to cater to the seller to the best of our ability. And then I always have the lender, no matter who it is, I always have the lender call the listing agent right after I sent the offer and say, hey, I'm working on this buyer's loan. Dallin Lyman just barely sent you an offer for it. These buyers are very well qualified on over X, Y, and Z. I don't foresee any issues with the transaction. I hope that you accept our offer. Imagine if you got an offer from an agent that called you to ask what's important to your sellers, an agent that called you to tell you what the offer looks like and how hard they tried to match your seller's needs, and then a lender that called to ensure you that not only the buyers are qualified, but that he is a competent lender that cares and is aware and has the time and the attentiveness to call. That wins multiple offer battles like nothing else. And just last week, I had a listing. We had 5 offers. We were having offers come in at 20, 25, 30,000 over asking. There was one offer that was willing to pay up to $400,000 for a $365,000 home. And we ended up going with a $385,000 offer, because I told the seller, you know, look, this is a little bit less than someone else might be willing to pay, but that agent, that lender didn't call me. They didn't give me a reason to believe that they are serious, that they're competent, and that they're going to take care of this transaction. This agent and this lender did. And by the way, they even accepted a contingent offer that was less than a non-contingent offer because of the confidence that they had in the agent and the lender backing the offer.
Before we go to selling.
Okay.
Would you recommend, like, say your clients that are looking for a home, but they own a home,
Mhm.
if they have a place to stay, would you recommend selling their property first to make your offers look stronger because they wouldn't be contingent upon sale?
Yeah, if they're in a position where they can sell their home before you start looking, I encourage that. But if they're not, I at least tell them, look, the chances of you getting an offer accepted when you haven't even listed your house is literally like 1 in a million. You know, right now, it is a super rare chance that someone's going to accept your offer, that someone's even going to consider your offer if you're not at least on the market. And really, if you're not under contract. If you're on the market and at least under contract with a solid buyer and all of that, then most times sellers, you know, if there's other non-contingent offers, they're probably going to go with those. But they're definitely not going to go with yours if it's not even under contract. And a lot of agents will give you a time clause if they do accept your offer that isn't under contract yet. They'll give you a time clause saying that they're still going to market the property as an active listing. And if they get an offer, can't remember if it's 24 or 48 hours to have your listing under contract, or else they can go with the other buyer. So I always try and get them to at least list their home first, or else there's really like no point in looking right now. So good question. Anyways, and always ask the sellers before you send an offer if there are other offers on the table. Whether or not there is, get your offer in as fast as you can, because if there isn't offers, they're more likely to consider your one offer to put it under contract. If there are multiple offers, you really want to get your offer in before they just hurry and accept one. So always be in this market, be quick. Like I've literally been showing homes up in Ogden before, and my clients have said, hey, I want this home, I want to make an offer. And we drive to the Starbucks and write up an offer right there. And I send it to the agent so that there's no delay at all. Because if you take the time to drive home, to write it up that night, to write it the next day, which you might have to do being a brand new agent, or at least call an awesome agent or one of the staff here. Yeah, definitely. I have cards I can give you. Just remind me before the class is over. Anyways, so.
I have a question for you on that.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So I have a friend right now who is under contract on a house,
Mm-hmm.
and sellers keep pushing out the closing date because the seller will not close without buying their next house.
Is there a clause? Do they have an addendum that says that the seller doesn't have to sell unless they have a home to move into?
I don't know all the details. And I'm not their agent. She just was saying that they keep doing something to extend the deadline. The seller's agent does. So I guess my question is, with stuff like that, like, do you have an option as the buyer's agent to just say, you've pushed it out 4 times already. If it's not done by this date, or if you haven't accepted a lease back, we're backing out? Or are you kind of like, are your hands tied at that point?
You can, but depending on where your deadlines are and where you are within your own deadlines, you could be in default. Okay. So that means that you could have to forfeit the earnest money.
Right.
It just depends, because there's a clause, I can't remember what it's called because I've never used it, but there's a clause, like an addendum clause, that says that the seller will accept this offer if you allow them to live there until they find another home.
Right.
If they have signed that and they're past their own deadlines, then yeah, they would be in default if they canceled, to the best of my knowledge. I would ask Dean though, because Dean, he'll tell you all out for you really clearly.
Cool. Thanks.
So we're going to go over really quick. This benefits you as a buyer's agent and as a seller's agent to know what makes a good offer and what makes a horrible offer. There's a lot of points in the contract that mean as much or more. And so I'm going to go over the different sections. Number 1, let's see, is earnest money. What is an acceptable amount of earnest money? It depends. I usually fill it out based on how many offers there are, based on who the listing agent is. If there's no offers and it's a homey listing, $500. You know what I mean? I've done that, $1,000. If your client really cares about the home though, and there might be other offers coming in soon, don't play games. But like I actually just offered on a home myself. That's a homey listing. It's a $440,000 home, and I offered $1,500 in earnest, which technically would be really low, but they took it. So it just really depends on the situation. But general rule of thumb is 0.5% to 1% of the list price is a good fair offer. 1% is more aggressive, more than 1% super aggressive. 0.5% is acceptable. Anything less, generally not acceptable. And another thing is, as long as you are conservative with your deadlines, as long as you are 100% confident that they are going to qualify, unless some crazy thing happens, like, you know, COVID-19 comes in and ruins the world, which I don't know if you can be in 2020, but as long as you're confident and you've got deadlines sufficient to do all of your inspection work, all of your due diligence, the financing appraisal, all of that, which you talk to the lender to make sure that there's plenty of time in the deadlines you set. Honestly, you could put down 3% in earnest money and it's protected by those deadlines, as long as you don't cancel after the deadlines. I'm not saying you should, but if you have to be super competitive and your buyer's willing to put their money where their mouth is and they understand the risk, I've seen that make the difference between an accepted and a rejected offer as well. So earnest money is important. Again, anything less than 0.5%, depending on the situation, not very highly considered and oftentimes frowned upon or laughed at. So keep that in mind. Purchase price. So you've really got to fill it out. And the longer you're an agent and the more transactions you do, you'll start to be able to look at homes and know as soon as you sit on the MLS, have a pretty good idea if there's already multiple offers, if there's a chance of being, you know, if it's already going under contract, how much you think you'll have to offer, which after you talk to the listing agent, you're going to have a good idea. If there's an offer, you should offer over asking. If there's multiple offers, you should really start talking to your clients about how much they want the home, because it quickly becomes more about, do you want the home or not, than are you looking for a deal?
I got a funny comment that Micah Olson said when he taught a class or two ago. He said this market's so competitive. He talked with his clients and they put $100,000 in earnest money, non-refundable, and to get their offer accepted because they kept negotiating, so they just dropped it.
That's insanity.
And yeah, they missed out on.
If it was a cash offer and you know for darn sure that you want it, that's one thing. I would not do that if there's financing though, because anything can happen. Your buyer can get furloughed the day before they're supposed to close because, you know, COVID-19 is just such a, you know, whatever. It's a mess. So yeah, use discretion, especially for your first few deals. Talk to somebody, talk to an experienced agent before you submit the offer, and make sure the buyer understands the risk of the earnest money. There's little to no risk as long as you're good with your deadlines, but there's always going to be a lingering somewhat of a risk that they might not get the loan at the last minute or whatever. So you've got to make sure that they're aware, you know, to offer the most they can stomach taking a risk on. Okay. And so you've really just got to analyze what is it going to take to win this offer. Now, if the home's been on the market for 21 days, 30 days plus, then it's probably because they're priced high, and you're probably going to get them to maybe help pay your closing costs, maybe give you a price reduction, maybe both. I've been able to work some pretty sweet deals. That's when there's deals to be made, is when a home's been on the market for 30 plus days, because it's free game at that point, in my opinion. They priced high, they gambled and lost, and now the market is going to tell them what their home's worth, right? Which is why pricing is really important when you're a seller's agent. Anyways, so determining that price, let's see. The contingency clause. Now, sometimes, like if they're about to close within the next 2 weeks and your due diligence deadline is 2 weeks, you know, you can ask your sellers, or you can ask your buyers if they're willing to take the risk on not making it contingent. You know, like there's a lot of things to do. Talk to your buyers and lender about that one. Possession. Possession usually isn't a big deal unless it's in the case that like they need more time to move into their other home. Then you can make possession negotiable. You can give them 24 to 48 hours to move out, 72 hours. If it's longer than I think 72 hours, you have to sign a lease back agreement, which Dean can explain to you if you're ever in that situation. Then there's like negotiating the HOA transfer fees and things like that. Now, a lot of times like HOA transfer fees, like the home's in an HOA, there's likely going to be a transfer fee. I've seen them as low as $300. I've seen them as high as 1%. And so always make sure before you submit an offer that you for sure know what the HOA transfer fee is, because you don't want to volunteer for your buyer to pay the HOA transfer fee thinking it's $500, finding out it's 1%. Now, how do they pay for it, right? But if buyers can pay the HOA transfer fee and there's multiple offers, that's another area of the contract that you can stand out above other offers, because most offers that I've seen ask the seller to pay the HOA transfer fees, even though the seller probably paid them to get into the home. And there comes, and I'll give you guys a copy. I have a copy of the contract filled out, so you have kind of a blueprint. If you're ever stuck and it's 10 o'clock at night and you can't get a hold of any agents to help you and you have to write an offer, this will give you a basis to kind of base your offer off of, to know how to fill it out and what it should look like. Let's see, the next condition is financing, appraisal, due diligence. In almost all cases, you should probably have that, have those boxes checked, unless it's like a cash deal or your buyer is really that confident that they want the home or that they qualify for the home or whatever. But I don't recommend leaving those boxes unchecked in most cases. Let's see. I don't know what that feedback. I'm sorry, guys. Let's see. There's a section that talks about home warranty, whether your buyer wants a home warranty and whether the buyer or seller are going to cover it. Home warranties range between $300 and $500 a plan. Use it to their discretion. If they're offering $10,000 over asking, it's likely not going to break the deal if they ask for a $500 home warranty plan, a seller. But use your discretion. Sometimes I'll literally go, buyer's paying for everything, offering 10, 20,000 over. If they want it that bad and they're willing to pay it, make the best offer you can make for them. And then there's other points in here which you can ask agents for help on if, whenever you're in that situation. But I'm going over the main ones. The last one that's super important is the deadlines. There's 4 deadlines in a contract. Technically there's more, but as far as ones you're going to pick, aside from earnest money has to be turned in within 4 days of the offer being accepted. That is calendar days. That's not weekdays. It's not business days. It's calendar days, 4 calendar days. But the ones that you can adjust is the seller's disclosure deadline, the amount of time that you're going to give the sellers to get their disclosures. If there's an HOA, technically the contract is they have to get you all of the HOA disclosures as well, which can take sometimes a few days. If there isn't an HOA, they should be able to get you the seller disclosures within 24 hours. Due diligence deadline. So this is the deadline that your buyer has to cancel with no repercussions for any reason. It could be because they showed up to the house and it was a cloudy day instead of a sunny day and they don't like cloudy days, so they don't want to buy the house anymore. Like, it can literally be that weird of a reason. You don't even have to give a reason if it's in the due diligence deadline. You get the earnest money back, no penalties, everything as well. That's the time period that you're going to be doing inspections, radon tests, meth tests, mold tests, whatever your buyer feels that they need to test to be comfortable and confident with the home. An aggressive due diligence deadline is about 7 days. If you're wanting to be super aggressive, you can do like a 7-day due diligence deadline as long as your buyer's confident and okay with that. That means you need to order the inspection the day that you send in the offer. As soon as that offer is accepted, you need to you need to order the inspection for like 24 to 48 hours maximum, because if they are going to find mold and want to do a mold test and all that, it can take 2 to 5 days to get those test results back. So 7 days is probably the fastest I would ever dare do, unless my buyer isn't doing an inspection because they're overconfident or whatever, and they don't want to do an inspection. 14 days is the most that this market culture is really allowing. Anything over 14 days, sellers start looking at it like, why do they need that long? Like, are they even confident in this home? Are they going to be shopping for 3 weeks while we're tied up in a contract for a different home? So 14 days is the most the market will really allow. Most of my offers are about 10 days because it's competitive. For due diligence. Yeah, it's competitive, but it also gives plenty of time to have an inspection and get all the testing and everything. Call from Virgil. Ohio. I'm probably calling about my car's extended warranty. The financing and appraisal deadline. Check with your lender, but I'll tell you most lenders are going to need 21 days. Anything over 21 days, again, usually not a very safe, good idea, because the norm in this market is like exactly 21 days. If your lender really needs more time, find a different lender because they're going to have a hard time getting that accepted. In the event that they have to sell their house, sometimes I'll set the financing and appraisal deadline. If they're going to close on their house like 20, give them till 24 and just tell the agent why, to double protect them on the selling contingency. But use your discretion. Closing deadline, an aggressive timeline. If your lender is 100% confident they can do it, which most honestly can't right now because they're so busy, 21 days if you can, if you're in multiple offers, that oftentimes will be amazing to the seller. Like, sweet, we're going to close in 3 weeks. It'll be a turnoff though, so make sure you call that listing agent first. 21 days is 30 days is normal. Up to 35 days is acceptable. Anything over 35 days in most cases is like, if there's multiple offers, you're not going to get your offer accepted 9 times out of 10. If it's over like 32 days. So just take that. You're also accounting for weekends. Like, you don't want to set your due diligence deadline on Sunday as one of your 7 days, because the Saturday and Sunday aren't going to help you. You know what I mean? Then you're really a 5-day financing and appraisal. Does that make sense? Anyways, so in a nutshell, there's literally like thousands of terms that you can negotiate in a contract. But those are the main terms that you're going to be dealing with on a daily basis. Let's see. Make sure you're communicating really well with your lender and have a good lender. Talk to agents before you do your first deal. Talk to a bunch of agents, find out who their favorite lenders are and why, and get locked in with an agent that you've at least heard you can have full faith in. And you remember real estate school telling you the risks of like pushing a lender on someone. But I always say, if they have another lender or not, I always say, hey, I know a guy. I actually know a couple lenders that are really awesome. I feel like this one would be a really good one, a really good fit for you. If you want their contact info to just, compare estimates, then give them a call. And then it's like no pressure, but you should get a second opinion type of thing. There are so many like special clauses and contingencies and things that we could go over that I'm not going to go over just because of time. But Dean will help you with those. A lot of agents will be able to help you with those if you're in unique situations. And again, presenting the offer to the listing agent, I always call if I can, text if I can't, to let them know I sent in an offer, what the offer is, how much my client loves the home. And, I always, like to mention how good the lender is that they're using, and, how committed I am to making sure that the transaction is as smooth, fair, and safe as possible. Because really, when it comes down to it, as a real estate agent, what I've come to find, I thought I was getting into sales. It's rare that you'll honestly sell someone a home. that you'll sell someone on a home. I found they want to sell or they don't. They want to buy it or they don't. They want the house or they don't. And I'm not, unless they ask for my opinion, I'm not going to push them one way or another on any of those things. But where you become a salesman and where your salesmanship is so crucial is in the negotiations and presenting the offer to the listing agent. You have to first sell yourself to the client. If they're going to sell their home or they're going to buy a home, you've got to first sell yourself on why they should use you. And then once you've earned that business, you have to sell yourself to the listing agent on why they should choose you, right? Why they should trust you, why they should trust your lender, why they should trust your buyer. You're the person in charge of selling that to the listing agent. It's not just the offer alone that's going to win or break all the time. Sorry, I'm just kind of preaching here. Retain what you can, I guess. Okay, so on the selling side, again, this is where you earn your value or where you desecrate your value. Like I'll tell you, there's a reason why Homey exists. And in my like honest belief of why Homey exists is because of agents, because of mediocre agents that are too complacent, or they don't care enough to go the extra mile for their clients. And so clients get as much or more value using Homey than the average agent. It's true. Like when someone is thinking about using Homey, I tell them I can't blame you. Most agents don't perform as good as Homey, as sad as that is. But you've got to stand out, and where you stand out and where you're really going to show your value. You know, I always mention in listing presentations that I advertise homes on over 300 websites, and, you know, that I do professional photography and all that stuff. But any other agent, including Homey, can do that too. Where you're really going to earn their trust and where you're really going to prove your value is in the negotiations. How well you represent them, how well you communicate, and to what extent you go to protect them from accepting a terrible offer. There's some things that you can't foresee. There's some things that you can't perfectly know ahead of time about an offer. I remember a couple months ago, my clients accepted an offer that they combed through so heavily, or that I combed through so heavily. I called the lender, grilled him, asked him a bunch of questions, called the agent and said, how much do your clients really want this home? Are they going to continue shopping, or are they committed to this purchase? Accepting their offer, and I had just sent out the rejections for all of the other offers that we got. And then not even an hour later, the listing agent called and said, hey, I'm so sorry, but they decided to buy another home. They just made an offer on another home. We're withdrawing our offer. I did everything I could have done, and my sellers fortunately knew that. But you want to do everything you can do to prevent that if possible. And so, as a listing agent, once you list a home, you're eventually going to receive an offer. The first thing that you should do, the first thing I do is I review the offer. I quickly glance over it. What are the terms? Make sure you pay attention to the details though, because I have called a seller before and been like super excited. Hey, we just got an offer for $10,000 over asking. What do you think? They're like, oh yeah, we love it. And then I look at the addendum 1 and it's closing cost credit for $10,000. You know what I mean? And then I look like an idiot. Yeah, so go through the whole offer first before you call your seller, and make sure that you really understand what the offer is so you don't look like an idiot and get their hopes up. But also sometimes before I present the offer, but definitely before my client accepts an offer, I insist on calling the lender every time. I'll call the lender every time to ask him, okay, what have you gone over? What have you reviewed? Was this just a phone call, or have you gone over their credit? Have you verified income? Have you gone over their expenses? Do they have a home to sell? You know, sometimes, again, the buyer's agent won't disclose that there's a home to sell because they're confident it's going to close before deadlines. I like to ask the lender if it actually is contingent or not. And I comb the lender really heavily. It's brownie points if he calls me first, but most of the time I have to call them. I don't have a specific list. A lot of times it's situational based on the offer, but I always at least ask, what have you reviewed? What type of loan is it? Is it conventional, FHA, VA, USDA? Because you will be surprised. I don't have time to dig into the details. I would talk to a lender to get details, but you would be surprised on how much each loan program can change how the transaction goes and what to expect out of the transaction. If it's FHA or VA, there's going to be an FHA or VA inspection that can oftentimes be super harsh. If the home has any peeling paint on the house, the fence, the porch, or not literally the car, but anything on the property, even like removable playhouses I've seen get flagged for peeling paint. Missing handrails, loose handrails, missing smoke detectors, smoke detectors that don't have batteries in them. And it can delay closing. You can get clear 3 weeks into the contract and find out they can't even buy the home because the home can't pass an inspection. So make sure that you know what type of loan program it is. If it's USDA, you're probably going to have to accept a 40-day close because it's hard to close those in 30 days because USDA takes so long to review the contracts or the underwriting. So anyways, find out what loan program it is, how much they're putting down. If, based on the way they wrote the offer, if they're going to have enough to cover the closing costs, or is the credit they're asking from the seller enough to cover the closing costs. Ask them if they are confident that they can close by whatever the closing date is. Because even my favorite lender, I don't use him much more. But I always call him before I send in an offer and I say, hey, I know that 30 days is your comfort zone, but can you pull off a 21-day close? Because we're in multiple offers and I think that'll help in this case. And he always tells me, put in what get it under contract and we'll worry about it later, which usually means no, I can't, but just tell them that I can and we'll extend later when the seller's desperate. I don't like you don't want to set your seller up for failure. You don't want the unforeseen, right? Then I present the offers to my clients, depending on how many offers, how overwhelming it is. If there are, on my third listing I ever took, we had 23 offers. And my clients literally said, if it's going to net us under asking, don't even talk to me about it. Because I was young and new in the business, I still went over every single line item of every offer anyways. But ask your sellers, hey, you have, this many offers that are going to net you over asking, this many going to net you less. Do you want all the offers or just the higher ones? Anyways, and then you present the offers. So when you're going over the offers, especially if you ever have to go over a terrible offer with your clients, prep them for it. Say, hey, you don't have to accept, you don't even have to counter, right? But I have to present this. And go over it. I just had a client, someone offered that had been on for 3 weeks, and it was my grandma's listing, and I called her and I just said, listen, I don't even want to read you this offer, but I technically am supposed to, so I'm just going to tell you what it is. Don't accept it. And it was good. But prep them for it, help them, go through it and help them to know in simple terms what the offer is, how much they're offering, how much the earnest money is, whether it's contingent, what the deadlines are, what that even means, what the benefits are, and help them to come to the best decision. Now, again, they can accept, they can counter, and they can reject. And a rejection, they don't have to sign the rejection. If they're going to reject offers, just send a text or an email or a call to the buyer's agents that you're rejecting and let them know. But if they're going to accept or counter, they need to, go through and accept or counter by signing. Let's see. Trying to think here. Yeah, so what to do at this point in the situation, it's all situational, right? There might be just an amazing offer. Your client doesn't want to waste any more time. Let's just get it under contract with a good offer. You've had a good conversation with the lender. The terms work for the seller. Then they'll just accept it. But sometimes they're like, oh my gosh, like none of these offers are quite what I'm looking for. Or these offers are all like identical. I don't even know what one to choose. In that case, if you have multiple offers, you can either you could counter them all. You could counter one and just see how that one responds before you respond to the others. You can send out a notice of multiple offers and tell them all to submit their highest and best offer by this day and time. You can do it a lot of different ways. But use the judgment of the seller, and at least in your first few transactions, talk to an experienced agent before they accept an offer or before they respond, just to know how that agent would respond or what they would recommend. Having multiple offers, though, is key to getting your seller everything that they want and more. Like that's when people come out of the woodwork. When they start focusing, a home well is so important. If you can get the buyer focusing more on what is it going to take to get my offer accepted and less about how much am I paying and what kind of deal can I get, the mindset and the energy of the whole transaction shifts from the buyer being the one in control and the seller being the one lucky to be hearing from them, to the buyer being in control and the seller being in control and the buyer feeling grateful to have an opportunity to offer on the home. So you've got to create that energy. Anyways, so yeah, make sure that you gather that information. Make sure you talk to the lenders. And then before you accept an offer, because if you counter an offer as a seller and the buyer signs that counter, you are under contract, your seller can't back out. Once you're under contract, a seller cannot back out under really like any circumstance unless the buyer defaults, then the seller can back out. So make sure that everything is good. Make sure that you've fully looked over the addendums to make sure there isn't any funny, weird things stuck in there. Make sure the deadlines are for the month that they're intended for, not the wrong month. Make sure that there aren't any weird contingencies or anything like that. Make sure you're reading the price right. Review the pre-approval letter too before you before you tell your seller. This one time I had a listing. We estimated that the home was worth somewhere between $250 and $260. So we priced it at $250, and within like 24 hours, we got an offer for $25,000 over asking, and it was a cash offer, no contingencies, like a week close. And I was in the middle of an open house when I read it, and I literally blacked out. Like, this is a sweet offer. So I call my client. I'm like, you're not going to believe this. We just got a cash offer for $25,000 over asking price. The only thing you have to worry about at this point is where are you going in a week? What are you going to do? Let's find you a home, right? And then after I get off the phone with him, I glance at the proof of funds letter, and the proof of funds letter said $235,000. I'm like, that's weird. They must have accidentally sent the wrong letter, right? So I called the agent. I'm like, hey, just to clarify, the offer says that you're offering $275,000. The proof of funds letter says that you're only offering $235,000. Which number is it? He's like, oh my gosh. He's like, the proof of funds letter is the right number. I need to send you another offer. So what I thought was $25,000 over. I mean, and who wouldn't think that? It's in a contract that the buyer signed, right? I thought it was a $25,000 over asking. Turned out to be a $15,000 under asking offer. So be careful.
Shoot.
No worries. Say what? No problem. Okay, so I actually just lost my train of thought again too. What were you talking about? $25,000. Oh, yes. Yeah, so I to this day don't know if the seller was just trying to or if the buyer was trying to just bait and switch. Like, I still don't know if they intentionally did that to bait us and then to send us an addendum like a couple days before closing, lowering the price by 40 grand. I don't know what their intention was, or if they honestly just somehow put a 7 instead of a 3, but double check.
The offer letter doesn't matter as much as what they sent in, right? Well, I guess it was sent in to get the offer was sent in together with the offer letter.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess it was just you having to double check which number was correct.
Yeah, and normally with cash, it's like, why double check? Like, he said that he can pay this much in cash. Why question it? But that's why you should
also
question
said
it.
275, and then they also said 235 with the.
Yeah, so the offer said 275. The proof of funds letter said 235.
Does one matter more than the other, or is it just checking through all the paperwork?
It's just verifying.
Okay.
Because the reason that in this case the proof of funds letter mattered more is because they didn't actually intend to offer 275. It was either a mistake or just a really shady bait and switch. And either way, like, if I wouldn't have verified that, we could have been in such a messy situation. And if I would have verified it before I called my seller, I would have saved him. Can you imagine the call I had to make? Oh, actually, it's the worst offer I've seen year to date. It's not actually that good of an offer.
Do you think, like, nowadays with DocuSign being electronic, some people are kind of careless and don't read through it as much as if it was paper?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, whenever I send an yeah, that's why I verify everything. And sometimes I'll call the buyer's agent before we accept their offer and say, just to be sure. I'll call the lender and say, just to be sure, this is what they're offering. These are the deadlines. These are all the terms. Is this realistic or not? And a lot of times I'll call the buyer's agent and say, just to be sure, these are the terms. You meant to, you know what I mean? You meant to do it. Another pointer. This is something I've just always done. I've never heard another agent say that you should do this or that you shouldn't. But something I've always done, just because I always have this lingering fear of liability hanging on my shoulder. Whenever I send a contract to be signed by a buyer or a seller, or any form for that matter to be signed by a buyer and a seller, I always text them and say, please review and sign as fast as possible. Instead of saying, please sign it as fast as possible, because then they can go back to our text and say, he was just pressing me to sign it. You know, I didn't even read it. He told me I didn't even need to read it. There'll always be that text message proof that I told them review and sign. Because the worst case scenario is for them to misunderstand something and they just hurried and signed it because they agreed to a term they didn't want to agree to, and they're stuck in a contract and they're blaming me because I didn't go over it more carefully. So always tell them to review and sign, so that they can't ever come back and say, he just told me to sign it and he was pushing me to, he didn't want me to read it, you know, type of talk. And then again, presenting the offer, how you present it matters. So present offers. If they're bad offers, present them, you know, tee them up and just say, hey, just so you know, this, in my opinion, is not a very good offer, but I have to read it to you. So here it is. If it's an amazing offer, just say, hey, look, like, this is a great offer, but we have to look at all of the terms. Don't just get hung up on the price, you know. Or if it's not that great of an offer, but there's a really big selling point, I'll tee it up with, hey, listen, not all aspects of this offer are perfect, but there's a couple of things in here I think are really valuable that we can play off of, right? And so how you present matters. Really just how you communicate as an agent matters. It makes the difference between, you know, a smooth transaction and a rough transaction. I mean, I just had to call a buyer 2 days ago to tell them that the home that they just spent 8 years living in, just tested positive for meth. And they had no idea. They were devastated. And they're looking at a minimum $2,500 in mediation. As much, I mean, meth can sometimes be $20,000, $30,000. So that's not a fun call to make, but it's how you make it. It's how you present it that'll make the difference between them flying off the handle and freaking out and getting hysterical, or just being like, hey, okay, we can work through this. What are we going to do? You got to be solution oriented, and you've got to speak solution oriented as an agent. Because the worst part about being an agent for me, the part I hate the least, is the difficult, hard, painful conversations you have to have with a lot of people every day. Not every day, hopefully, but at any given time, you can have to make a call that you do not want to make. My personal favorite, hey, got done with the open house, nobody showed. Or, hey, I know that we're supposed to close next week and that you've packed and that you've, have non-refundable earnest money on a house that you're buying, but the buyer just, you know what I mean? Sometimes you have to make those calls. Hey, living in a meth house, and so you've got to really carefully, figure out how you're going to present that in the best possible way, how you're going to have that conversation in the best possible way. I also just had my parents bought a home. They used the inspector I recommended. They're missed. Yeah, my inspector missed water damage problem that came out to be a $16,000 mold problem. That fortunately, the homeowner's insurance company is covering it, even though it's very provable that it was a pre-existing issue. Like by some miracle, they covered it because we went to the sellers. We were actually in the process of beginning to file a lawsuit against the sellers and a lawsuit against the home inspector, because if he would have even just opened up the kitchen sink cupboard and looked at it standing up, he would have seen a huge problem. The bottom of the cabinet was literally mushy like cereal. It completely deteriorated. And then I don't think I posted pictures, but then under the sink in the downstairs room, there was a water shutoff valve on the ceiling. If he would have just popped that removable cover off and looked in there, it was boom, covered with mold. And so he missed it in two different places. Like we were about to sue his pants off when the homeowner's insurance company said they'd just cover it. So those conversations are hard to make. It was really hard to call the the home inspector that I've used exclusively for 2 years, that I have a good relationship with, and tell them, hey, we need you to cover this or else we're coming after you. And so you just have to know how to present it. Fortunately, because of the way I presented it, we were able to take him from, I'm not covering anything, like I'm not assuming any liability, like let's go to court, to, you know what, let's get out of court, I'll cover it if I have to. And it's all in how you present. It's all in how you have to stay calm and collected and present bad news in the best possible light. Again, that's where you earn your value as an agent. I always tell my clients that real estate transactions are almost always rocky. They're always a rough road. But what my aim is as an agent, what my real purpose is to be the suspension to help that bumpy road to feel as smooth as possible and to keep you as protected as possible, right? Like it's kind of, a cheesy analogy, but that's what I tell them. Like on the suspension, that I can't guarantee that it's going to be a perfectly smooth transaction, that it's going to be I-15 no traffic all the way to the closing table. But what I can is that I'm going to do everything in my power to make it as smooth and beneficial as possible. So any big questions stand out for you guys?
When you send a counter offer, do you always just send it, or do you call the buyer's agent to kind of talk through stuff, or just send the counter over?
It depends on how communicative the buyer's agent has been. If they've been very like, hey, what do we need to do to make this work? Like, we want to make this work type of attitude, then it's a lot easier to call them ahead of time and have a cordial conversation. You guys submitted a great offer. My client just, a 35-day close is a little bit longer than they feel comfortable accepting. Is it possible for your lender to do it in 30, type of thing? I like to have those conversations before I send a counter, just to know if it's worth the time to even write a counter offer or not. But if it's where it's going to be, I don't know. There's some situations that I'll just send it and text them and say, hey, I just sent you a counter offer. A lot of times if it's going to be, if there's a lot of points to address, if it's really not a great offer, but, then I'll usually just send the counter and write in an email, hey, we can make this offer work if we address these things, but based on where the offer is at, it's just not within my seller's realm of consideration. And it usually goes pretty well that way.
With an escalation clause, with how crazy the market is right now, would you put how much they can go up to, or just say we can match your offers?
I usually put the most that you can go up to, because when I get an escalation clause that doesn't have a cap, I'm wondering where their cap is. You know what I mean? Like, do I want to consider this offer if their cap is 10,000 over, and the offers on the table for 20,000 over? So I would put a cap in, because it gives the listing agent an idea of like what is realistic. And you don't want your buyers to all of a sudden get a counter offer that is 25,000 over when they can only afford to pay 10,000 over. If nothing else, though, definitely have a pre-approval letter with that cap, whatever it is, so that they know what the most they can qualify for is, or what the most they're willing to pay is.
I have a listing coming up that definitely has an HOA. Would you recommend reaching out to the HOA, getting all the documents ahead of time, and see what the transfer fee is going to be?
If you can, yeah. Definitely find out the HOA transfer fee, get the documents if you can.
Okay. Should I just have them email it to me?
Usually every HOA is different. HOAs make you go online and print it off. Some HOAs will email it to you, and some HOAs will never answer your phone call.
Very true.
Yeah, it's a sad truth. I've had deals where I've had to chase down, the HOA for the whole transaction, had to even postpone the contract because they answer their phone, and then you start praying and, doing, relying on other sources to try and get the contact. But most HOAs will get you the info quick.
Can I ask another question?
Mm-hmm.
You talked about having the hard conversations with your clients or with whoever it might be,
Mm-hmm.
inspector and all that. Do you prep your clients for what worst case scenarios could be, or do you
Before listing?
Yeah, or do you just get there when it gets there?
Yes, I try and prep them for all of the common things or things that I perceive could be an issue. And again, that's a hard conversation to have. If the house stinks, it's a hard conversation to have, but you're doing them an injustice if you don't tell them, hey, you've got major like cat scents going on in here, and that can affect you. I'll usually tell my clients what I think the selling points of their house are going to be, and what I think the top 3 most common negative feedback items would be, so that they are prepared ahead of time. Like I had a listing a few months ago that was a huge house, huge lot, and a 3-car, it was actually like a 4-car tandem garage, sweet house, but it didn't have it had a tiny little itty bitty living room on the main floor. So like you've got the master, another bedroom on the main floor, big kitchen, great room area, and literally like a living room that you could not fit more than 2 chairs in. Like ministering room at best. Like home teachers and your kids can't sit down with you type of room. And so I told them, I'm like, listen, you guys have a great house. There's so much to love about this house. I know that you will get some good offers on the table, but you've got to know that this is going to be a thing. If it's a house that every darn wall in the house is a different color neon, then I'll tell them, hey, I recommend painting a neutral color, but if you choose not to, know that it can affect our value, because most buyers that come in are going to want to paint, or at a minimum will be the most common like negative feedback item that we get. So I tee them up for negative feedback items. I tee them up for no, not unless the ceiling is neon green too. If the ceiling is just, you know, whatever color, white or whatever, then you can just leave that. But just use your discretion. If you already have to price the house low because it already needs work anyways, then like paint isn't really going to be a redemptive thing in most cases. But if like it's a great house, but you know the paint's going to affect their ability to get top of the market, then I always recommend it so that they at least can't say I didn't tell them. Because I have had that before where I was scared to tell them like honest feedback, and they come back and they're like, man, why didn't you tell us that this was a problem? We would have taken care of it before you put it on the market, you know? So anyways, have the hard conversations, and you'll learn the longer that you're an agent, you'll learn what things commonly can go wrong. I oftentimes will even prep them and say, just so you know, there's a lot of investors in the market right now that will just come in and offer a low ball cash offer just because it is really prevalent right now. I'll say there's a chance to come in and offer a low ball cash offer. It's not an insult. It's what they do because they're looking for the desperate seller that will sell the home under value so they can flip it. Yeah. A lot of agents will call and be like, hey, before I write this up, I want to see if this is within the realm of consideration. Anyways, so just be thorough in that way, and prep them for everything that you think could be. I mean, you don't want to shower them with negativity, but when it's like when they're about to go live on the market, I always have that last call. Just say, hey, so we're about to go live. You're going to have a lot of showings. You know, be flexible with the showings, make sure personal items are out. And, you know, I always let them know this is crucial to let them know ahead of time that buyers will likely do an inspection and they will likely ask for a laundry list of items they want fixed. And I'll tell them, you don't have to fix all of them. We really mostly just lean on health and safety issues. You know, like health and safety issues should be considered customarily, but you know, I've been asked for new landscaping before, like for us to literally rip out the grass and the flower beds and everything and put in new landscaping. It's like, no, like you're buying a house and we're not going to, you know, finish the basement for you so you can move in. So anyways, I wish we had more time. I had some other things I wanted to go over. Do you guys feel like you learned something? What are, if we can just do one takeaway, like what's one thing that each of you can take away from this and use in your business?
I really appreciated the checklist. I feel like I haven't really literally go through all those things.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing you went really into depth with, everyone says call the seller's agent, right? But
Mhm.
I haven't heard anyone go in depth of like what things you talk to about, what things you go over, calling the lender, if the lender calls you, stuff like that. So that was really good.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Could you use the microphone?
I really like the checklist, and just even though, you know, we're supposed to like stay on the pages and such, I like how you went out of the pages and answered maybe some questions and talked about lead generation, honestly, because as new agents, we can never get enough of that. And we're just always trying to figure out what we can do. And so,
Yeah, that's why I
really
love
appreciated your time
talking about it. No matter what class I'm teaching, I always graze across it because honestly, even the Ignite book, what they say about lead gen, there's a lot of truth in it, but it's not this market and what it takes right now in Utah County to last. And every agent's going to have their own approach on how they build their business, how they built it. A lot of agents have been in it longer than me, and they built their business in a totally different economy, you know, and so it helps to kind of get all of that variety. So thank you. What about you?
Just kind of how you went over, you know, submitting the best offer you can, the one that would stand out.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it always helps to learn just kind of different tricks of the trade, you know, how you do what you do to make your offer stand out, to get yourself a higher chance of getting accepted. So
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, just being thorough with your offer and also checking the offers and double checking and then making the phone calls like Alex mentioned, just calling the lender, seller, buyer agent, making sure the ducks are in a row, and like that if you have two different numbers, verify which number is the number. Just doing your due diligence and standing out for your clients. And then, like you said, softening the blow. You're the suspension between what's hard, because there's always going to be something hard, and and what reality is. So I appreciated that.
Awesome. Thank you. And I'm glad, because if I were to pick 3 things that are most important, in my opinion, to take away from this class, you guys have named them. It's really make sure they're pre-approved, well pre-approved with a good lender. Make sure that you call the agent if you're sending an offer, or that you an offer. Did this just go? And call the lender. If nothing else, those are the 3 most crucial things. And it's funny, almost every agent out there will tell you, call the listing agent, call the lender. So few do. Like, you'll find you'll know the good agents from, you'll know the agents that are going to work hard and carry the deal through, and the agents that might not. And you'll be able to tell that based on how they communicate with you. And sometimes you don't get any offer, agent calls you and impresses you. That's when you need to take it upon yourself to call them, find out how solid they are, ask a lot of questions, call the lender, make sure they're solid, and solidify that offer. So I'm glad that you guys were able to come, that I was able to teach the class. And if you have any questions, I'll give you my card.
And also, just a little shameless plug: if you play softball outside of work, hit up Dallin. He's a stud.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I love softball, baseball.
I can tell. I like searched up your name in the MLS.
Oh yeah, home run real estate team. Yeah, I love baseball, and the name Home Run Real Estate, it really represents what I stand for. Like, I really want every transaction to just be out of the home run experience. Like, I want them to have a phenomenal experience. Use homie. Especially if I had to work hard to talk them into it, you've got to back it up, you know? So awesome. There are a couple of things that I thought I printed off enough of these, but I didn't. If you guys how many of you want a copy of a filled out contract? I was assuming everyone. So I need to print off 2 really quick. Who has to go right now? Is anyone in a big hurry? Okay. I can go print more of these off then. I just realized I left 1 box unchecked. But that'll be easy to, yeah. Yeah, so these, because my first time writing a buyer contract and offer, I didn't know what to do, and I couldn't get anyone to help me. So I looked at one of the like, and so this can help. So let me go print this off. No problem. I was going to have you guys write an offer on a house, but you'll get to do that sooner or later anyways. What'sy?
Yeah, it's what stands for what if they say yes.
Oh.
The class taught by Amber, and her and Dean require us to do case studies. So a case study for your writing paper.
Oh, that's good.
You have to do that before you can write.
That'll help a ton. I would definitely do that because that'll help you a lot.